My name is Linda Yudin. I'm one of the co-founders and co-artistic directors of Viver Brazil, and with us today is our newest co-artistic director, Vera Passos. So on behalf of Viver Brazil, we want to first ask for permission, a go, from our elders in the room, from my elder, from Casa do Mensageiro, ele achei, hoje sei, Olodumare, ago. We're so excited to see all of you here. We also want to welcome our Ifa community here. We have two amazing women who are my sisters as we share the Orisha Oshun across the waters, yeah, and here in Los Angeles, yeah. I also want to acknowledge someone that is very important to me in this room, Floriano Hedges, who was the Cultural Affairs Attaché at the Brazilian Consulate here in Los Angeles many years ago, or let's say 3 decades ago. And he really allowed me, he opened my path. He's my Orisha Ogum in so many ways. When I came as a graduate student to him and said, I'm going to Brazil and I need lots of assistance, and he was so incredibly generous. So, muito obrigada. Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, but you opened up the path there. You did. Very proud of you. Yeah, thank you. So we also want to acknowledge, as I said, our elders, and I think it's also very important to acknowledge all of those in the room here are our contemporaries, because I do believe that everyone in the room here has a story to tell, and that we all must depend on each other in these very amazing and trying times that we live in. So we acknowledge both our elders and our contemporary masters. I want to acknowledge our amazing Viver Brazil team, our executive director, Natalie Marrero, and our production associate, Michaela Maloney, who will be doing all of the social media today. And I want to thank BBCC and Mestre Amen and Nela for sharing the space with us today, and to also acknowledge the Department of Cultural Affairs from the City of Los Angeles, who is sponsoring this event. And now for the public service announcement. We did receive a grant from the City of Los Angeles to produce this event, but Viver Brazil is a nonprofit organization, so when you feel like you can, please share what we do, and also, if you can, donate, because it allows us to continue to grow and to grow calmly and creatively. So we thank you very much for even thinking about a donation at some point. So I'm very, very proud to introduce you to Yakekerê Daisy Santos. She is a very special person to me. I've just recently become an initiate of Casa do Mensageiro, and she was very much a part of my initiation. And this is an amazing time for us to be together a year later, getting to know each other. So I want to share a little bit about Daisy to you. She graduated, well, actually, you know what? I have to put on these fabulous glasses because it makes life so much easier to read. Daisy Santos graduated with a bachelor's degree in museum studies with a specialization in art and cultural heritage from the Federal University of Bahia, UFBA, and also holds a master's degree in ethnic and African studies from UFBA. Currently, Daisy is a visiting scholar at the Parsons School of Design, a part of the New School in New York City, conducting doctoral research for her PhD in anthropology from UFBA. Her work explores Candomblé ceremonial clothing and its influences on contemporary fashion in the African diaspora and worldwide. She was initiated into the Afro-Brazilian spiritual tradition of Candomblé at Terreiro Ileaxé Ojise Olodumare, Casa do Mensageiro. She received the title of Yakekerê, Small Mother, although she is gigantic in spirit, from Babalorisha Hishomi Mbiriba. And we also want to acknowledge him. His spirit is definitely in the room today. She is also the technical director of the Afro-Brazilian Museum Pai Procópio of Ogunjá, which is located on our terreiro in Barra de Pojuca in Salvador, Bahia. So without further ado, please welcome Daisy Santos.
Hi everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'm really happy to be here. And thank you, Linda, Natalie, and Michaela, and everyone from Viver, Brazil. I'm really excited to be here. Vera, and everyone. And it's like a journey for me, be here doing a doctorate like a Black woman from Brazil, from northeast of Brazil, being here doing part of my doctorate. So I'm gonna speak in Portuguese because it's more comfortable for me. And I think I can answer some things in English maybe, but yeah, I'm gonna start to speak Portuguese, and this beautiful lady is gonna translate for you, okay?
With this beautiful lady, Samantha Goodman.
This request.
I wasn't expecting to have to translate.
I thought I was going to watch this. Listen.
And Samantha is one of the is a company member and now this most amazing agent in Los Angeles. And we thank you for coming. But it's the truth casting agent you are. Yeah. Okay.
Então.
So.
Eu vou falar um pouco sobre como eu comecei a minha pesquisa e essa minha trajetória e como isso se conecta com minha história também de iniciação.
So I'm not going to translate every single word because I may forget, but and those of you that are Portuguese speakers, feel free to help me out here. But she's going to talk about her beginnings and how she began and the development of her work.
And the connections with her initiation.
Yes. Eu fiz a graduação em Museologia e...
So I studied museum studies.
E no final, nos trabalhos finais, eu comecei a estudar as roupas da Irmandade da Boa Morte.
And I started to look at the clothing of the Sisterhood of the Boa Morte, or the Sisterhood of the Good Death in Cachoeira.
E após isso, eu resolvi entrar no mestrado com o trabalho sobre roupas de candomblé, porque eu fiquei encantada pelas roupas da Irmandade da Boa Morte.
And because of that, she became very enchanted by their clothing and then wanted to look at the clothing of the Candomblé.
E foi no mestrado que eu conheci Pai Richelme e acabei me iniciando no meio do mestrado. Foi durante o mestrado que eu conheci Pai Richelme e eu me iniciei durante o processo do mestrado.
So I met Pai Richelme, Babalorixá Richelme, when I was doing my master's, because he was doing his master's at the same time.
Yeah.
And during the process of my master's degree, I became initiated into his Candomblé temple.
E o que isso é relevante para a pesquisa é que eu consegui fazer a pesquisa estando mais envolvida, estando dentro do assunto. Então,
because I was able to be more involved directly in my subject matter because I was involved in the Candomblé.
E isso fez toda a diferença na pesquisa.
And this absolutely made the difference in my research.
So, esses são alguns tópicos que a gente vai ver hoje, né?
So these are the topics that I'm going to be speaking about today.
Next slide, please. E antes de começar a falar sobre as roupas,
So we're going to talk about the clothing.
Vamos falar um pouco sobre o que é a origem do candomblé, do que se
And we're
trata.
also going to connect the origins of the Candomblé at the same time.
Candomblé é uma religião afro-brasileira, ela não é uma
Candomblé is an Afro-Brazilian religion.
ela não é uma religião africana, ela tem matriz africana, mas ela é afro-brasileira.
It has African elements, but it defines itself as an Afro-Brazilian religion.
Então, como eu coloquei ali, nada do candomblé foi criado no Brasil com essa base. Então, não é uma invenção, mas uma criação de pessoas negras escravizadas.
Fala isso de novo.
uma religião que foi criada no Brasil por
So it was
pessoas
a
negras,
religion that was created in Brazil
por pessoas negras escravizadas.
by enslaved peoples of Africa.
Então é uma tecnologia de pessoas africanas que encontraram no Brasil a chance de tornar essa religião possível.
Quer me ajudar aqui?
Eu estava ouvindo, mas eu não.
Fale de novo.
She was basically saying, so it was the technologies of all of these people that were able to come together and create what is known as the
Yeah.
Candomblé tradition.
Yeah. Next slide, please. So, então aqui a gente tem um pouco da rota dos escravizados.
So now we're looking at the route of enslavement from West Africa and other parts of Africa to Brazil.
E a gente pode ver de onde saíram os escravizados da costa da África e para onde eles foram e como isso vai influenciar o candomblé.
And you can see especially how the enslavement came from the coast of West Africa to Brazil.
Next slide, please. Então nós temos essa formação.
And so this is our formation, or as you can see in the slide here, these are the ethnic groups that arrived in Brazil.
Isso. E nós temos os locais, a língua e, na mesma direção, as nações que deram origem e quais são as entidades.
So we see the place, the location, the country, we see the languages, and then we see how these Candomblé nations worship their gods and goddesses, which in the Angola tradition, as you can see, are the Inquices, in the Jeje, the Voduns, and in Ketu, Orixás.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Aqui eu tento explicar um pouco sobre a nossa filosofia.
So now I want to talk a little bit about the philosophy, our philosophy.
Nós acreditamos em Deus
We believe in God,
e nós acreditamos que nossa comunicação com Deus se dá através dos orixás.
and we communicate to God through the Orixás.
Não acreditamos que existe inferno.
We don't believe in this concept of hell.
E também essa imagem de Deus ocidental não é a imagem que nós temos de Deus.
So we don't have this Western concept of this idea she was mentioning, of this idea of hell. We have our own concept of how we worship.
Então nós temos Deus e os orixás morando no Orum, que seria heaven,
So the Orixás live in the heavens,
e nós moramos e habitamos o Aie, que é a terra.
and we live on the earth, or Aye.
E aí essa comunicação, eu vou falar sobre como essa comunicação entre pessoas, orixás e Deus se dá.
So what I want to talk about here is this communication with the human being, with the Orixás, and with God.
Next, please. Então, essa é a ordem ritual básica que rege o candomblé.
So for her, this is the basic order of, as you can see, the ritual in Candomblé, and these are the topics that she will include, so that we can understand all of this to get to the ceremonial clothing.
Yeah. Então, nós precisamos de música, dança, da natureza e de comida para fazer a nossa prática.
So music, dance, nature, food are all a part of the Candomblé complex.
E percebam que tudo isso está sempre em circularidade.
And as you can see, everything is circular. Everything happens in this circular manner.
Next, please. A música é representada pelos atabaques.
So we worship music with the drums called the atabaques.
Next. A comida é representada pelo o que a gente oferece para os orixás e também o que a gente come.
This is also what we eat, but these are also the foods that we offer to the Orixás.
Next. E a natureza.
And nature.
Essa foto é da Casa do Mensageiro, é o rio que fica atrás da casa na parte nosso
So this
quintal.
river is very real because this is on the land of our temple space, Casa do Mensageiro.
E ele é parte de todo o nosso processo ritual e do nosso dia a dia também, porque nós tomamos banho todo dia, quase todo dia.
It's part of all of our rituals and our daily life because we're there all the time.
Next, please. Então, aqui eu tento explicar um pouco sobre o que seriam essas práticas e como se dá a estrutura de um terreiro de candomblé.
So she wants to talk now a little bit about, I want to talk a little bit now about the practice of the candomblé in daily life.
Essa é a estrutura básica, arquitetônica do que seria um terreiro de
So
candomblé.
this is sort of the structure, the architectural structure of the candomblé.
Então aqui nós temos ali nós temos o portão.
So we have the portão, or the gates,
Isso. Área comum,
the
cozinha,
common areas.
a cozinha, parte muito importante de um terreiro de
The kitchen
candomblé.
is a very important place in the candomblé.
O barracão,
The barracão, which we consider the central public area where the ceremonies happen and other functions as well.
bathrooms and dorms, that
You know, we have bathrooms, we have dorms, meaning that there
Living spaces.
are living spaces for the initiates when we are at the temple space. You know, we have to stay there maybe for a couple of days, so there has to be a place for people to live.
e os quartos dos orixás.
And then we have the separate houses for the orishas, or the rooms for the orishas, where all of the altars are kept.
Que são os espaços sagrados onde os cultos internos acontecem.
So these are the sacred spaces, and they're internal spaces that only the initiates from the house can go into.
E tudo isso cercado por natureza,
And this is all surrounded by nature,
porque a gente precisa dela para poder fazer e realizar nosso culto.
because we need nature to worship the orisha.
E aqui algumas observações sobre os terreiros. Os terreiros eles são independentes. Eles surgem de um outro terreiro matriz, mas esse terreiro matriz não é responsável pelo filho ou pela filha que surge.
She wants to talk a little bit about the terreiros, and there's always like a mother terreiro, but all the terreiros function independently. So there can be a mother one, but then another person will start another temple, and that works independently.
Isso, e eles funcionam, não existe um poder central.
There's not a central power.
E o sacerdote do terreiro, ele molda a estrutura desse terreiro.
So the worshipers at each temple mold or shape the way that the terreiro will function.
Next, please. E como, ainda sobre a prática,
So we're continuing to talk about the practice.
como se dá a experiência de uma pessoa dentro do candomblé, os passos que ela faz dentro da religião.
So what are some of the responsibilities that happen in the practice of candomblé?
Basicamente, do nosso dia a dia, é um dia a dia de uma casa.
Our daily practice, or the way that we live our life is very similar to the way we live in our own homes.
Cozinhar, plantar, varrer, e a parte ritual que acontece nesse meio termo.
And when we're as it says here in English, when we're at the temple space, we cook, we plant, we harvest, we clean, we have to sweep, we pray, we prepare ritual moments, and we have public celebrations.
E o caminho seria, primeiro, jogo de búzios.
So the way in which one can participate in the candomblé is through spiritual readings.
Depois, são os primeiros ritos de conexão, que seriam os ebóis ou boris.
And there, as it says here, are the first rites of connection, and that may happen through the throwing or the divination of the 16 cowrie shells.
Or she is saying also like offerings, ebos, bodhis, things for your.
Depois, é uma vivência, você tem que estar no local e vivendo e aprendendo e
And there's sort of this sense of living there, this practice of really living in the temple space.
E depois disso, a iniciação.
And it could be that then you will be initiated.
Essa progressão, ela depende de cada pessoa.
And this progress happens, you know, it's independent for each person.
Ou seja, você pode parar em cada etapa, depender da sua motivação para isso.
So one can stop at one part of this path, and you still can be connected. You can have a spiritual reading and have a connection, and you can stop at any moment. Not everyone has to be initiated.
Everyone has their own path and can choose their own paths within the Candomblé.
Yeah. Next, please. Falar brevemente sobre a história do Candomblé para
So I
poder
want
chegar
to
nas roupas.
speak briefly about the history.
Before we get into the clothes.
Como eu já falei, foi uma religião criada por homens e mulheres africanos
As I said,
escravizados.
The Candomblé was created by enslaved African men and women
Isso século XVIII.
in the 18th century.
Depois foi perseguido pelo Estado, até durante o período colonial também, perseguido pelo Estado. As pessoas eram presas, as festas eram paradas.
So Candomblé practitioners were experienced persecution by the state, you know, and by the police from the colonial times all the way, as it says here, until the 1970s.
A partir dos anos 20, começou a ser pesquisada por antropólogos e etnólogos.
And so from around the 1920s, we start to see researchers, anthropologists, and ethnologists coming to Bahia and coming to other parts of Brazil. And we talked about this morning that I said I felt that she really needs to give her, I asked her to give herself permission to talk about the fact that these researchers and anthropologists were white, were almost always white.
Isso. E nesse período também começou a se criar a imagem, utilizar a imagem das pessoas negras para criar uma imagem de Bahia, uma imagem de bebendo dessa cultura para criar uma imagem do estado da Bahia, uma imagem turística desse estado.
So what's happening in Bahia at this time of this research is, as you can see here, this image of Bahia gets created by perhaps outsiders, and what is this figure? What is this Candomblé figure, for example, of the Baiana? What does that mean? So it's coming from an outside source of being identified, and how the government, for example, or how these researchers are sharing this information so that the government literally has a way to create
Basically promote tourism with the black image.
It's okay, that's
E depois, a partir de 1984, os terreiros começam a ser protegidos por leis federais.
So as she mentioned, beginning in 1984, there's actually the government begins to have, you know, federal agencies that are protecting the rights of Candomblé worshipers. And as you can see here, this figure of você pode falar o nome? Quituteira. Quituteira is a Candomblé woman with specific clothes. Sorry.
Você não deixou ela falar.
Sim, as quituteiras são mulheres que mercavam nas ruas da cidade. Diferente de hoje, que a gente tem as baianas de acarajé, que ficam paradas nos locais, elas andavam e circulavam pela cidade inteira vendendo.
So, basically she's talking about this, como que você fala?
Quituteiras.
Quituteiras. They used to like travel around the city and markets selling things. Now, like today, you'll see baianas that will have like sell acarajé just in very specific places, but before they traveled around the city. And so this also became like a touristic image that was like shown, like the government was promoting this image of the black woman for tourism, and this image that became like the sign of what Bahia is like, and it comes from this woman, this black woman who sold in the markets and went around the city.
So Daisy was also telling me this morning, and I think this is really important to share, that because Brazil couldn't, in a sense, eradicate their blackness, they decide to capitalize on it through the Baiana. And we also wanted to mention that yes, most of the anthropologists and ethnologists were white, but we also want to affirm that Lorenzo Turner in the 1940s was doing very incredible and very important research, and he was not being recognized. He's only being recognized
just now,
as recently, with the work that he did with in the Candomblé, and he was black from the United States.
Yeah.
Can you say his name again?
Lorenzo Turner.
Sobre esse período também é importante observarmos o gap dos tempos entre quanto demorou para que essa religião fosse reconhecida e tida como algo a ser preservado pelo governo federal.
So did you want to say? It's important to like look at the gaps in time and like this timeline of from when Candomblé like began to be practiced to the time that it was actually recognized and protected by the governments, because it was persecuted for a very long time. I mean, even up until the 1970s.
Yeah. Next, please. Então, chegamos nas roupas.
So now we're going to talk about the origins of the Candomblé clothing.
A origem das roupas de Candomblé são as ruas, são as quituteiras. São as mulheres de ganho que mercavam nas ruas de Salvador e do Rio de Janeiro e das capitais coloniais.
Você pode repetir?
Sim. A origem das roupas de Candomblé são as mulheres quituteiras, mulheres que mercavam pelas ruas das capitais. Primeiro Salvador, depois Rio de Janeiro e São Paulo.
So the origin of where these clothes came from in the Candomblé is from these quitutera women who used to go around the city selling in the markets, first in or not first, but in Salvador and Rio.
E esses são os pedaços, o que compõe uma roupa de uma quituteira, uma roupa de ganho, e hoje uma roupa de Candomblé.
So we're going to actually break down what a Candomblé practitioner wears, and also what what they were called, the baianas were called, or women that were, the quituteras were women, black women, who were able to make a living from selling wares, not only food, but what I learned this morning was they were also selling fabrics as well. So that there was a trade actually coming from Africa to Brazil. And they also sold those, what we call alacás, or a shawl. Could be a ceremonial shawl, oftentimes.
Então nós temos a saia,
So we have the skirt.
o camisu ou camisa de crioula.
So we have the blouse, which is called a camisu, or a camisu de crioula.
Like a camisole, is that what it's called?
No, it's like a white top with a puff sleeve.
Yeah.
And it's the style is it's either a camisu or a camisu de crioula, so it's the way in which it's sewn and styled.
Pano da costa.
The pano da costa, which is what it literally means, is the piece of cloth from the coast.
Da costa das Minas ou da costa da África. Então,
So it was the piece of cloth that's being remembered from the west coast of Africa.
Então esse tecido era originalmente africano.
So as we just said, this fabric was originally from Africa.
O ojá, que é o pano da cabeça.
So the ojá, or the fabric on the head wrap.
E essa imagem representa bem o que a gente falou sobre o mercar pela cidade. Essa caixa era feita especialmente para isso. Ela é de vidro e madeira.
So this image actually is really that the quituteras carried their wares on their head in these particular tables.
E ela era composta desse jeito justamente para que as pessoas pudessem ver a que mercadoria elas estavam mercando.
So because they were constructed like that so that one could really see what they were selling.
Também haviam tabuleiros abertos, mas eram essas duas versões, o tabuleiro e essa caixa.
So there was also this box, or there was like a tabuleira, which is a piece of wood with either the foods and or the
Goods, whatever.
the
they were
goods where
selling.
they were selling on top of a piece of wood,
Next,
a
please.
stand.
Yeah, I could.
Remember, I was like, what is it? A stand, a tabuleira stand, a wooden stand.
Então, a origem da roupa, ela é africana, mas ela também é portuguesa. E aí a gente tem as anáguas e as saias com bastante volume para provar essa origem.
So we can see now that the clothing itself had both an African influence and it had this European influence as well, with the petticoat, with the full skirt, because of that 18th, 19th century look of the European women. But we also acknowledged that there was an affirmation of what the African women were wearing as well, the black women were wearing.
Next.
It's kind of like two ideas of what regal is combined.
Yeah. Aqui são algumas imagens de mulheres de ganho
So these are
mercando.
images of these women that were able to work, they were able to make a living.
E essa imagem do meio mostra também as joias que elas tinham, e isso era algo muito comum.
So this is, and we're also seeing in the center picture the jewelry that they were wearing, and this was very common to see this particular jewelry.
Isso chamavam-se joias de crioula.
And they were called the jewelry of the Criolla, or the jewelry of the black woman, the black people, or the black women.
Elas também tinham origens portuguesas
There were Portuguese origins in the jewelry
e africanas,
and African influences as well.
e eram feitas por ourives africanos.
And this jewelry was made by and sold by goldsmiths or jewelers, African jewelers or black jewelers in Brazil.
Next, please. Essa é a roupa dos homens.
And this is the male clothing.
Chapéu, equeté ou gorro.
So the hat is also called the ekete or
Gorro.
gorro.
Camisa,
The top or the camisa,
calça,
pants,
e os pés normalmente estavam descalços.
and usually there was no shoes being worn; they were barefoot.
Sempre se fala das mulheres de ganho, e pouco se fala dos ganhadores. The men that,
Você quer falar sobre os ganhadores?
Well, she's just saying we lots of times we talk about the women, but we're not necessarily talking about the men.
yeah, and, né, eles também foram importantes, eles também circulavam pela cidade,
They were also important because they also were circulating around the city.
e no particular caso de Salvador, era
What was particular to Salvador,
uma cidade com muitas ladeiras
and it's a city with lots of hills,
e não tinha transporte público.
And there wasn't public transportation.
Então, antes das carruagens e dos cavalos, esses homens faziam todo o transporte da cidade.
Wow. So before like horses and any type of public transportation, they were the one that were doing all the transportation up and down these hills
by foot, yeah.
by foot, barefoot.
E, recentemente, um professor de História da Universidade Federal da Bahia fez uma pesquisa
So recently a historian from the Federal University did research,
e escreveu um livro sobre a greve de 1857.
and he spoke about the strike that happened and that really literally stopped the city in 1857.
E foi uma greve feita por esses ganhadores. Eles pararam a cidade.
And and the strike was created by these ganhadores, or these men.
E nada acontecia na cidade, porque a cidade dependia desses homens e dependia dessas
And it really
mulheres.
stopped the economy of the city because the city depended on them.
On all of their deliveries to like.
Next, please. A origem da roupa masculina, ela tem uma origem muçulmana.
So the origins of the men's clothing has origins in
Muslim.
in the Muslim tradition that
Por-
came to Brazil.
Porque Salvador recebeu muitos.
Actually, to Bahia specifically.
Isso, Salvador recebeu muitos africanos islamizados.
So actually, Bahia had many enslaved that were came practicing Islamic traditions.
A imagem do carregador de cadeira de arruar é para simbolizar a roupa europeia.
And this center photo is the European influence.
E esses dois tipos de roupa influenciaram a roupa dos homens no candomblé.
And these two influences make the Candomblé clothing that we see today. Pai Ayer José is from the Candomblé temple Pilão do Prato in Boca do Rio, and he's known for his really incredible way of
Great
dressing
taste for
himself.
fabrics, yeah.
It's quite amazing to see how
Yeah,
very fashionable, we would say,
sure.
both men and women are at this particular candomblé.
O que é
Next,
cadeira
please.
de arruar?
It's like a chair that carry people, like, yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. It's like a place that you put and
Sit and they would
they chair.
carry, wow.
Yeah. Aqui são algumas imagens de carregadores. E
These are images of the men who used to transport things all through the city.
a gente pode ver através dessas imagens que eles carregavam de um tudo. Era tudo que
And
havia
they
de
really
comércio.
carried and delivered everything, as you can see. And Daisy mentioned this morning too when we were going over the lecture, that as you can see, these men were wearing suits. Okay, there was, yeah.
E a gente pode reparar na imagem do meio, eles estão usando terno e guarda-chuva.
So you can see that they're using that they're wearing suits
And they have a
E,
umbrella.
e chapéus também.
and hats as well.
E uma das primeiras coisas que os escravizados faziam quando conseguiam a alforria era calçar os pés.
And so one of the first things that these men bought were shoes for themselves once they were freed from enslavement.
Next, please. Então, na minha pesquisa, eu encontro 3 possíveis motivos da manutenção dessa roupa por 3 séculos.
Ok, eu não.
Follow you, Norma.
Na minha pesquisa, eu encontrei 3 possíveis maiores motivos para a manutenção dessa roupa
So
por
I'm
3
looking at
séculos.
3 areas in my research of how this clothing has been maintained.
O primeiro motivo seria essa roupa era o que essas pessoas negras entendiam por luxo naquela época, por estar bem vestido naquela época.
One of them is for like this idea of luxury and presentation, so that you always looked really well dressed and well put together.
Next, please. O segundo motivo seria a questão de estar com o corpo coberto para poder participar do candomblé. Isso é uma coisa importante.
So one of the reasons was, as you can see here, that the clothing also covered the body, and that's very important in the Candomblé tradition, that for women and for men, that the body is covered for protection.
Next, please. E Para mim, o terceiro e principal motivo é a manutenção do movimento e da plasticidade que as roupas dão na dança.
So, and the third motive for this maintaining of the traditions is that the fabrics themselves and the way that they're worn give movement. It allows for movement in the body so that one can dance, which is, as you can see here, an important element in Candomblé.
Essas duas fotos de cima são de Pierre Verger em África.
So these two top photos were taken by Pierre Verger in Africa.
E essa foto embaixo já é uma foto de terreiro de Candomblé no Brasil.
And this bottom photo is a photo of a ceremonial clothing in the Candomblé itself in Bahia.
E a gente consegue notar a semelhança do movimento.
And so you can see this similarity in the movement with the circular skirt. And we talked about the fact that you can see in these two top photos that there was already so much fabric and there was fullness. So this idea that the petticoat brought the fullness, it was already part of the African tradition. Yeah.
Exatamente. A gente só adaptou
So we
usando
adapted all of that fabric, which in the Candomblé ceremonial clothing, there is a lot of fabric. Yeah, lots of fabric.
Next, please. Os principais elementos das roupas de Candomblé são 3.
So these, as you can see here, she is saying exactly that. The principal elements of the clothes are
Cor, formato e símbolos.
Colors.
format.
Next, please. Então, nós temos no culto do Candomblé 16 orixás ou inquices ou oduns.
So in these particular traditions, the Yoruba tradition, the Bantu tradition, and the Voodoo traditions, 16 deities have been remembered in Salvador, Bahia.
Eu não vou falar sobre todos os elementos de todas elas, porque senão a gente ficaria aqui por muito tempo.
So if I spoke about all of the 3 nations, we would be here for a very long time tonight. So
Eu escolhi alguns dos orixás, e estou falando de orixás porque é a nação à qual eu pertenço.
So I'm going to speak about the Yoruba traditions because this is what I know and what I belong to.
And I've chosen a few
Right.
orishas to speak about.
Yeah, we're not actually going to go through all of the 16 deities, even though we
Yeah.
would like to.
Yeah. Next, please. So the first one, Exu.
So the first Orisha that we're going to talk about is Exu.
As cores preponderantes são o preto e o vermelho.
So the principal colors are black and red for Exu.
A gente tem a cabaça como um dos elementos principais de Exu.
So the gourd is one of the principal elements on the ceremonial clothing of Exu.
E tudo isso tem explicações mitológicas.
And these all have mythological explanations.
Por exemplo, o preto e o vermelho está ligado ao mito de Exu, em que ele acaba fazendo com que 2 vizinhos briguem, porque ele está se mostrando para um vermelho e para outro preto.
So, like the colors, for example, for Eshu, the red and the black are associated with a story that talks about Eshu, like 2 neighbors arguing because Eshu is showing, they're arguing over what color they see because Eshu is showing one red and one black.
E ele é o orixá da dualidade,
And he's the Orisha of duality,
das possibilidades.
the idea of the Orisha of possibilities.
Isso. Então, essa ideia de 2 cores, de 2 versões, de tudo que pode se multiplicar.
So this symbolizes this idea that there are perhaps 2 ways of doing things, two different ideas that can, that's what it is. And we also know about this, if any one of us have studied or heard Dona Cici's, my Cici's stories, she talks about this a lot in his stories.
E eu coloquei essa foto do Carnaval do Rio de Janeiro.
So I chose this photo from the carnival in Rio, where the theme from one of the samba schools was Exu.
Isso. E esse é o destaque da comissão de frente da escola.
Eu não entendi.
This was the theme.
Essa pessoa, ela fez o papel de Exu como destaque da comissão de frente da escola de samba.
Like the mascot? No.
Almost like the mascot, actually.
Like the head
Yeah.
person of the, I don't know how you
The highlight of the front commission. So in the parade in Rio, there's a group that starts each samba school and sets up the theme for the samba school. So this person was like the highlight
Yeah.
of that group in Rio.
Thank you, Nicole.
The protagonist of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The parade, the protagonist comes first as a shoe opening its face, right?
Yeah.
to tell the story. Thank you.
E eu coloquei essa imagem para mostrar também como, já adiantando um pouco, como o candomblé e os orixás têm sido levados para outras partes, mais recentemente, da arte e da moda, como eu vou falar mais para frente.
Just basically talking about how taking from the tradition and like seeing it in different modern contexts that she's about to talk about.
Isso. Next, please. As Yabás.
So now we're going to talk about the female orishas, specific female orishas, which are considered yabás, queens.
Yeah. Aqui a gente tem apenas 3, mas elas são mais.
Here we have 3, but there's many more.
Oxum, Iemanjá e Iansã. E as representações delas estão ligadas, Iemanjá e Oxum, às águas. Então, toda a cor é relacionada à cor das águas do rio e do mar. E Iansã está relacionada ao fogo, e eu coloquei a imagem do barro porque ela é a que pega o segredo do fogo de Xangô. Então, ela está relacionada a essa manipulação nas panelas e na cozinha e da questão do fogo.
So, go ahead.
Go on.
Oshun and Yamaja are linked to water, so she was saying like the colors have to do everything with water and like the reflection qualities of water. And Yansa, she put these
The symbol of these ceramic bowls and pots and so forth.
in the color red because she got the Shango's secret of fire. And so she has a lot to do with
With the movement and what happens in the kitchen and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next,
please.
I don't know how to translate.
Aqui nós temos uma família.
So now we're going to talk about the G family in the Candomblé tradition.
A família que engloba os orixás ligados
So these are the orishas that are connected to
à terra.
the earth.
Então nós temos Obaluayê,
We have Obaluayê,
Nanã,
Anã,
Ossan,
Ossan,
Oxumaré,
Oxumaré,
Iroko.
Hiroko.
E a grande característica nas roupas desses orixás
One of the biggest characteristics of all of these orishas
são os búzios.
in the clothing,
São os búzios.
are the cowrie shells.
E a ausência de brilho.
And this
alguns.
idea of the absence of she said of brightness, shiny, yeah, not so much brocade, for example, or shiny, yeah.
E a razão
Shiny
disso é a origem desses orixás. Eles são originários de Daomé.
And these orishas have a connection to Dahomey or to Benin.
E lá a valorização do búzio e desses elementos de coral era gigante, era enorme.
So this you'll see in this connection to Benin, this gigantic idea of the búzios and also of coral.
Era a ideia de riqueza que civilização tinha. Era isso que era rico para eles, não o brilho do ouro, ou da prata, ou de um metal, mas os búzios.
So basically, what she was saying, in that culture, it wasn't gold or silver or jewels that meant being rich. It was the buzios that held all this value.
And the coral as well.
And coral,
Yeah.
yeah, excuse me.
Next, please. Agora eu vou fazer algumas observações sobre as roupas de candomblé.
So I'm going to share some observations of the Candomblé clothing
A partir dos meus estudos e algumas modificações que ocorreram ao longo desse período.
from my research
Algumas modificações que ocorreram.
and some modifications.
Esses desenhos, eles fazem parte do meu trabalho de mestrado
So these drawings are a part of my master's thesis research.
e foram feitos por uma pessoa também de candomblé, especialmente para o meu trabalho.
These were made by someone from within the Candomblé, especially for my research.
Então, aqui nós temos uma diferença entre quando a pessoa que incorpora o orixá é um homem ou uma mulher. Há uma diferença no que eles vestem.
So these are basically differences of like the person who's incorporating or is receiving orisha, if it's a male or female spirit. And you'll see the differences in clothes.
Isso.
And the way that the clothes are worn.
Isso. Então, nas mulheres sempre se usam saias nos orixás,
So
independente.
female orishas always use
Skirts.
skirts.
No females orixá, females.
Sorry,
Yeah, the person,
The female.
the female.
the female.
If the body is
the
female.
the
Oh, if
human
the
being,
body's
the
female.
female will always use a skirt.
Yeah, independent if the orixá is, independente se o orixá é homem ou mulher.
So
Okay, I translated that wrong in the beginning. Basically, she was saying if the person receiving orisha is a male or a female, like it doesn't matter if what the orisha spirit is, if it's male or female. If you are a female-bodied person, you're always gonna wear clothing that involves a skirt.
E no caso dos homens, foi incorporado o bombacho, que é essa calça, para os orixás, para as pessoas que são homens e incorporam orixás, independente de serem masculinos ou femininos também.
Same thing with men. They'll wear this regardless if they're incorporating or receiving a female or male orisha.
they'll wear these kinds of pants called bombachos.
Bombachos, yeah. Next, please. Aqui nós temos alguns detalhes da roupa de Oxum, por
So here are
exemplo.
some details for the Orisha Oshun.
Os laços, e esse laço especialmente é um laço que Oxum usa por uma razão específica.
So this one of the pieces of fabric has this particular bow,
That's on the-
and there's a reason why only Oshun wears that particular.
You can tell that part.
Seringue.
Yeah, seregue.
So it's called a seringue, and it symbolizes the fact that she, Oshun, is the female orisha of high society. She's the woman of high society. She is the female orisha that occupies that space of being the yellow day, or the female of high society.
E na outra imagem, no outro desenho,
And these other images here,
nós temos distinções de amarração de ojá,
so you can see that the head wrap is tied differently.
Então, se a mulher é de orixá feminino, ela usa duas abas.
So if the woman who is incorporated has a female orisha,
Yeah.
that you see they have these two pieces, almost like wings.
E se é de orixá masculino, usa só uma.
And if they have a male orisha, they will only have one piece of fabric that comes up, or one wing.
Next, please. Falar um pouco sobre Oxalá,
So we're going to speak a little bit about Oxalá, the Orisha Oxalá.
que embora seja um orixá masculino, ele usa laços
And
que são
even though Oxalá is a male Orisha, he uses bows.
que são laços ligados a orixás femininos.
That they're related to the feminine.
E isso também há uma explicação mitológica para isso.
And there's a mythological inspiration. I think many of us know from the stories from CC
You can tell this.
that Nana, well actually Oxalá, tried to trick Nana because he wanted to know what the secret of death was. And so he dresses himself as a female Orisha and goes to her thinking that she won't recognize him. And the summary of the story is a wind comes by and the piece in the front, which has a specific name, which I will let her talk about, the fila opens and Nana is able to see that she was tricked by her own husband. And so Nana says to him, you know, I'm angry with you, and your punishment so sad for that. And your punishment will be that in your life and in ceremonies, you will always wear female identified clothing. Don't lie to your partner. So that's why you see this male identified Orisha wearing everything that Daisy mentioned as that is normally for a female Orisha.
E a partir do trabalho, da pesquisa, eu pude perceber que a roupa de candomblé, ela é uma construção complexa.
So, and what I've learned from my research is that the clothing of the Orisha is very, very complex.
E que é possível perceber influências históricas.
So it's possible to see and perceive historical influences.
Influências mitológicas.
And also mythological influences.
Como a gente viu aqui.
And you can see this certainly in the clothing of Oxalá.
E apesar de se manter a mesma em essência por 300 anos.
And even with all of this, we're able to see this influence that, you know, from 300 years into modern times, contemporary times.
A gente consegue ver algumas adaptações e
We can see
mudanças
some adaptations and influences
que vêm acontecendo ao longo do tempo.
that are coming from a long time.
E é por isso que eu entendo esta indumentária como moda.
And this is, you'll say,
É por isso que eu entendo essa indumentária como moda.
so I see this clothing as fashion as well,
Next, please.
or these influences as fashion
Yeah.
as well.
Então, nós temos as roupas que saem das ruas, vão para os terreiros e voltam para as ruas nos blocos afro, no carnaval.
So we see this relationship from
Their origins
their
from
origins from the street
Yeah.
to the Candomblé temple, and now their influences into the carnival of Salvador, Bahia,
back onto the street.
back onto the street. Right.
Isso.
Thank you.
Porque os blocos afro de Salvador, eles têm, em sua maioria, origens em terreiros de candomblé.
And many of the blocos afros have origins in the Candomblé temples.
E esses terreiros, com certeza, influenciaram a estética desses blocos afro no seu começo.
Eu não vi.
Esses terreiros, com certeza, influenciaram
Aesthetic.
esses blocos afros e a estética desses blocos no seu começo e até hoje.
So it's like 100% that the teherus, the temples, have influenced the styles that you see from Orisha, have influenced the aesthetic of the Bloco Afro's fashion and costumes.
Next, please. E aqui é onde começou minha pesquisa de doutorado. Eu falo
So this is part of my doctoral research now.
sobre como, ao longo de 10 anos, surgem marcas e costureiras jovens começando a fazer essas roupas e comercializar essas roupas.
So actually, it says this idea of how young seamstresses, especially, are creating brands for themselves, and how this is all relating to this production of axé clothes, both in the temple and so
Fora do terreiro.
and outside of the Candomblé.
Eu
That they're
posso-
creating brands where we see all of this influences outside of the Candomblé.
Eu posso falar um pouco sobre as marcas.
So she's now going, and now I'm going to talk about the brands.
A Alfabemin é a marca de uma menina que tem 28 anos.
So
This one,
this first one,
Is a brand by a woman who's 28 years old.
and you can find her on Instagram, as you can see,
yeah.
which is great. I mean, that's an influence here that they're.
Yeah, that part is important because it will be impossible without the internet, like. E como a internet tem influência no surgimento dessas marcas, no surgimento desse comércio. Ele não existiria se não existisse a banda larga e a internet e se isso não tivesse aflorado.
She's basically saying, like, without the internet, none of this would be possible. That, like, these brands wouldn't have a voice, or they wouldn't be able to be created or seen or heard.
E a Tâmara, que é a dona do Alfabemin, ela não costurava antes de se iniciar, ela nunca tinha costurado.
So in this brand, the woman who created it, she had never sewn before she was initiated.
E a partir do momento que ela se inicia, ela começa a fazer as suas próprias roupas, e depois começa a vender para as irmãs de santo.
So from the time she initiated, when she initiated, she started to make her own clothing and started selling them. E falou o quê do Mãe de Santo? Ela falou o quê?
Ela não falou nada.
Sisters of
So she
the same
started to make
terreiro.
clothing,
For this,
gave her an economy, basically.
Oh, and
Inside
for
the
the
co-
other, she started selling them to the other women within the terreiro.
isso. E hoje ela tem uma loja colaborativa no centro da cidade de Salvador.
And now she has a collaborative store in the center of the city in Salvador, Bahia.
Isso. Do outro lado, a Mago dos Metais é uma empresa de joias.
So this,
It's a jewelry company. Sorry, I can't see the name.
O Mago dos Metais, o nome.
so it's called O Mago dos Metais. So
Oh,
it's
O Mago,
it's
the
it's
magic.
one African-Brazilian man who has his own jewelry line.
Ele faz joias há muito tempo, mas depois de iniciado, ele passou a fazer uma linha só de símbolos de orixás.
And again, he was initiated, and then he began to create a line of Orisha jewelry after his initiation. And he's doing really well. Yeah.
Yeah. Também tem uma loja e
Tem uma loja?
tem uma loja há 5 anos
And he also has a store for the last 5 years as well.
e já empregou mais de 10 pessoas na empresa.
And he's also employed about 10 people because he's so busy.
Yeah.
Great.
As outras duas marcas também são de pessoas de Candomblé, uma é CAD e é de um terreiro do interior do estado.
And so this brand
This one.
to my left, to our left, is from a woman who has her line in the interior of Bahia.
Isso. E
They're both also from Candomblé.
sim.
All of these.
Todos.
Yeah, all of these lines are their owners have been initiated into the Candomblé.
Isso. E ela faz muita produção para o pessoal dela e da região de onde ela é, não só para o terreiro dela, mas também da região de onde o terreiro está localizado.
So she's just responding. She creates clothing for not only people within her own terreiro, but like for people all around the region of her terreiro.
O que também facilita o comércio fora da região de Salvador.
So we can see that this economy is happening outside of the city itself and going into the interior of the state.
E a última marca é de também uma iniciada já há muito tempo no candomblé, ligado à Casa Branca, que é uma das principais casas, mas ela também começou a costurar há pouco tempo. E nessa casa existe um projeto de aulas para pessoas aprenderem a costurar roupas de candomblé. E foi assim que ela começou a marca dela.
That's so cool. Now I'm responding.
So this woman's from Casa.
Ela é de uma casa filha da Casa Branca.
So this particular line is from a woman who has a relationship. She's a daughter of Casa Branca. Yeah. And one of the things that she's doing right now is she's offering a course to other young folks, yeah?
Não ela, a Casa Branca ofereceu, tinha um projeto e oferecia, e ela aprendeu nesse projeto.
So Casa Branca, which is one of the principal houses in Salvador, Bahia, offered a course to teach
People how to sew, and this is where she learned how to sew.
E eles não ensinavam só pessoas jovens, eles ensinavam...
Oh, it's not only for young people, it's for anybody, all ages, folks. And I'm curious, for men and women, or just...
Men and women.
So for both men and women to learn how to sew.
Next. That's it.
So Vera, you want to come up? Vamos? So we thought that first we would, well, first of all, a little modupe.
Achei.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
sharing.
too. Thank you for helping me.
I think this is we think that this is very fascinating research, and but we want to open up the floor to questions that you might have, and also we want to we're asking Vera to come up because we think it's really important that there are women and men that are creating their own brands and their own lines of clothing, and that this idea that from the street into the terreiro and back into the street, there's this sense of ownership, and I'm talking from my perspective. I'm an ally of this very incredible culture that I have been adopted into. That this is now the voices of Black people are able to self-identify, not only self-identify, but also to create their own economy. And this is coming from them. This is not coming from a state-owned decision of what Blackness is or how to create an economy. And what I think is, very amazing here in what Vera is doing, not only as the co-artistic director of our dance company, but she too now has acquired a piece of real estate, which is no easy task, and there's no grants for folks to acquire real estate, but that you are doing this, and that you have to fundraise, and that you have to run an organization with, the hope that all of us in this room and many, many others will be supportive of you as a female entrepreneur and as an owner of a real estate owner, and that you will thrive and share with, the community your hope that your space will offer, low-cost or free classes to youth and to many other ages as well, but that this will be a space that came, from you.
Do you want to say the
right.
name of the space?
And the name of the space is Casa de Cultura São Movimento. Yeah. And so we have this really, we have this depth, of incredible knowledge here. And, I happen to love fashion, so when Daisy began talking about this, I said, wow, let's share this. Yeah.